All right. Welcome to this very special call on the topic of just tell me what to eat. I know this is a statement that I know myself I have said in the past. I know a lot of people come to me with this frustration of really understanding, like, okay, you know what? I've tried everything. I just need to know. Just tell me. So today I'm going to share 5 steps to creating this healthy food lifestyle that you will actually stick to, because that's what we want, right? It's not about just getting to the number on the scale or fitting into those skinny jeans for a week or for a specific event, fitting into a dress. It's about being able to achieve the results and then actually be able to stick to it and maintain those results for the long term. So I'm going to introduce myself here in a minute, but first I really just want to start off this call really addressing why you're here today. Again, I said in the beginning before I started the recording, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day today to spend with me. And I want to make sure that I give you everything that I've got on this topic because I know how important it is. Like, I know how this is such a struggle. I hear it all the time from people. Like, the food part is the hardest part. The confusion is the hardest part. So I want to start out by talking about, when I do this presentation live, one of the questions that I ask is, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to eating healthy? And what I typically hear from people in the audience is things like this. So cutting back on sugar, having major cravings for things like sugar and not really being able to get past them. I also hear people say sometimes that they really love bread and they can't stop eating bread. Or I'll hear that they're hungry all the time, or that they really struggle with eating healthy when they're out with friends, maybe a girls' night out or something like that, or also when traveling, which is something I myself have dealt with in the past as well. And then finally, the last thing I hear is sometimes people will tell me, well, I've tried these different diet plans or, food guidelines, things like gluten-free, and then I realize that just because it's, for example, gluten-free, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make me lose weight. So I think that's a big one for people. You start to follow these different rules, and then you realize, this rule isn't actually going to, it actually isn't helping me to achieve my goal. So what am I supposed to do? Like, how do I actually do this in a way that works for me? And so I wanted to do this call right now here in March because we're about 90 days out from summer, from swimsuit season, from wedding season. And, a lot of people will say that beach bodies are made in the spring or at this time of year versus, in the summer. And I think that's really true. Like, I don't mention that in order to stress you out and make you feel like, oh my God, I haven't done anything, I need to get started. I mention that because I believe that 90 days is a much more realistic time frame to make positive, sustainable change than 2 weeks or 7 days or any of these other really strict plans that we try to follow, right before a big event or right before we have to be in a swimsuit or right before a vacation. Because 9 times out of 10, when you go the strict route, then what ends up happening is that you end up binging. You end up going off the deep end. You end up feeling super deprived. And then what happens when you have temptation in front of you, you go crazy. So when we set these different goals, like the whole purpose behind healthy eating for most people, the primary goal is because they want to reduce excess body fat, right? You want to know, just tell me what to eat, but that's because you want to achieve this goal. And for a lot of people, that's weight loss. But we don't want to just lose weight. We want to lose fat, and we want to maintain as much lean muscle mass as we can because muscle is what burns more calories. The more muscle that we have, the more we're able to eat and maintain our weight and maintain the look of our body, in a way that's got curves in all the right places, versus just losing weight and then your body isn't set up to be able to maintain it really well, or you just get really flat, like you just have sort of like skin on top of bones, which we don't want that either, right? So our primary goal in learning what to eat in order to achieve our dream body is to reduce excess body fat and also maintain lean muscle mass. Our secondary goal, which is also very important to people, but a lot of times we don't put a lot of focus on this, is that we want to increase energy. We want to improve digestion and reduce bloat, because nobody likes to feel bloated. Nobody likes to have digestive issues, right? We also want to improve our sleep. We want to reduce stress. And we want to improve our mental clarity. So those are the reasons behind, obviously, why we want to learn how to eat well. So I just kind of wanted to structure it, starting from that place, so that we have this clear picture of like where we're headed. Like, this is the purpose of this call. I'm not just going to tell you what to eat. I'm going to tell you what to eat in order to achieve those results. So when it comes to dream body blockers, the number one problem is confusion. We struggle with knowing, how do I make this stick? What should I be eating? We Google all of these different, phrases, and we try to figure out, like, well, what am I supposed to be eating? And we follow all of the media outlets and all of the different lists that they give us on what we should and shouldn't be doing. And we're constantly wondering, like, am I doing it wrong? Am I doing it good enough? And it's so confusing, because a lot of the times the messages that we get from the media, from well-meaning friends, from experts, they all seem to be conflicting, and they all seem to be changing all of the time. We wonder, should I be paleo? Should I be gluten-free? Should I be low carb? And what I want to do today is really help you to clear the slate on what you think you should be doing and just get back to the basics, because the basics are what are most important. Now, I think that we're all pretty clear on what those basics are. We all know that we want to mostly eat whole foods. We know that we want to really flood our body with nutrients and nourish our way towards our goals. Like, that's what I'm all about. That's my motto, is making it super easy for us to be able to nourish our way towards our goals. And we're going to talk more about that, because that's what makes it sustainable. But when it comes down to it, even though we know, okay, shop the exterior of the grocery store, eat lots of veggies, there's a lot of ways that we tend to overcomplicate it. So what are some of those ways? Some of those ways are our lifestyle and our schedule. We have lots of things that come up that cause it, that make it really difficult for us to be able to eat healthy or to choose options that are supportive of our goals. We also can tend to overcomplicate it by having lack of time to do these things, like really not having the time to prep ahead or not having the time to make those healthy choices. So we end up grabbing something from the vending machine. We also struggle with cravings. That's what I mentioned earlier. That was one of the big things that people mention. We also struggle with our environment and our support system, or lack thereof. A lot of times we'll start to make some positive changes, but then other people around us are not in the same boat and are not on board with these healthy changes. So then we get, backlash, or we get people that, are kind of tempting us to, eat like they eat. So then we end up falling off the wagon. We also struggle with things like travel or being on the go. And then the final thing is not understanding how and why we self-sabotage ourselves. So what we're going to cover today is going to help you make healthy, the idea of being healthy and healthy eating, as easy as possible, so that you can walk away from this call tonight having like a real clear understanding of what you need to do, and even a concrete plan on how to get there. That's what I want to give you. That's what I want you to receive from this. So make sure you have a pen and paper. Make sure you have something that you can take notes on, because you're going to want to write this stuff down. And there will be a recording of the call as well. But I feel like a lot of people, we learn best when we're really focused and taking notes, those little sound bites that really pop out to us. So to get started, first I want to really sort of introduce myself and give you a clear picture of who I am, in case you don't know me. So my name is Sheila Beers, and I'm a premium dream body coach. And so what that means is that I help people break free from yo-yo dieting so that they can feel amazing in their skin. And this really stems back to my own journey. I started on the road to weight loss and really, dieting at the age of 15. And I remember that I felt like in order to feel beautiful, I had to be skinny. And that really followed me all the way through high school and then college and then even into my career after college, because I just was always struggling and always obsessing about my body and obsessing about food and obsessing about all the things that we're talking about today, about figuring out how do I do it right, or, having this very black and white mindset around food of restriction and setting up these very rigid guidelines for myself, eating chicken and broccoli and sweet potatoes for a lot of different meals. And, I finally realized that there had to be a better way. Like, this was not going to work. It was not sustainable. I felt like I was sort of in this body jail, and it was self-imposed. It was all coming from me. I was forcing myself to be in this very structured, rigid routine where I wouldn't let myself go out with girlfriends and have cocktails. I was afraid to have pizza with my family because all of these things would trigger me to go off the wagon, to binge, to eat too much and then feel really crappy about it later. And so I realized that I didn't want to live my life that way. It did not feel free. It did not feel like the adventure that I wanted to have. And so that's when I really started diving into learning about how to support my body in all the ways that it needed, in order to work like the well-oiled machine that it truly is and truly can be. And so I taught myself that. I went through and discovered a lot of things that I didn't realize, that things that aren't talked about today, about the direct physiological effect of our emotions on our physical body. And I healed a lot of stuff within myself, and I really learned how to create a lifestyle that had the amount of structure that I needed to feel safe and the freedom to be able to go out and do the things that I wanted to do. And so we're going to get into each of those things today. But since 2012, this is what I've been teaching to people. I've really been helping them to discover how to nourish their bodies towards their goals. So it's not about quick fixes. It's not about gimmicks. It's not about diets and deprivation. What I teach is a long-term sustainable approach that is designed around you, your unique preferences, and your goals, because that's what's going to make it stick. So today we're going to cover 5 steps to plug into your routine that will get you past this confusion and, out of this mindset of obsession or body jail, if that's what you're dealing with right now, so that you can make real progress towards your dream body goals and really create this lifestyle where you can not only rock your dream body, but start rocking your dream life, because that's what we want. We want to get out and do things. We want to stop obsessing over food, right? We want to put our attention on the things that we actually care about. And we want to set our body up so that it can thrive and work like it's supposed to work. So to begin, and you want to write these things down as I go through them, number 1 on this list of the 5 steps is to say goodbye to black and white rules and restriction forever. And I know for a lot of people, that's a big pill to swallow because we're so used to really believing that somebody outside of ourselves has this list of good foods and bad foods, or, these rules that if we just follow those rules that somebody else is giving us, that then we're going to be able to get results. And we might. The truth is that if we follow those strict rules, a lot of times we will see results. But are those maintainable results? No, because they're not designed around you. And the other part of the equation is the minute you start telling yourself that you can't have something, so something like sugar or bread or coffee, when you tell yourself you can't have these things, then it just makes you want it more, right? I mean, I'm sure you can relate. I know for myself, the minute somebody tells me that I can't do something, it makes me want to do that thing even more. So restriction is not a lifestyle. And, any sort of plan that doesn't take into consideration your preferences, your likes, your dislikes, your schedule, it's not going to fit. It needs to be, we need to customize whatever it is that we're doing around us, around what we like. And so what I like to tell my clients, and this is so freeing for them when we talk about this, is that we live in a world of inclusion, not exclusion. So there are no rules that this food is bad, this food is good, you can have this, you can not have that ever. When we talk about this, it helps them to understand that anything like the buffet, the food buffet, has every sort of choice that you can imagine on it. And what we want to do is to start creating this structure, like I was talking about earlier, this balance of structure and freedom that gives them that feeling of enough structure to feel safe, but enough freedom to feel satisfied. So I want you to get into this mindset of not ever really telling yourself, I can't have that. But maybe what you do is say to yourself, okay, right now, I know, like if I check in with myself, I know that telling myself that I can have pizza every single night of the week doesn't feel good. Like that doesn't feel good. I know if I ate pizza every night of the week, I'm going to end up feeling really crappy because of all of the other guilt, shame, and everything else, plus just, the idea of not nourishing my body, not getting it nutrients. It just doesn't feel like a fit. So what sort of guidelines do I want to set for myself that will give me that structure, but then also give me the freedom to go out and do the things that I want to do? And that's where we can start to play with this balance of maybe saying something like, well, what feels good to me is to have 2 treat meals a week where I incorporate things like pizza or wine or dessert in an amount that feels like moderation. So it feels like I'm giving myself the opportunity to enjoy these things, but not to the extent that it makes me feel like I've lost control. So maybe you set that up and it's like 2 pieces of pizza and a glass of wine, or 2 pieces of pizza and a beer, or maybe it's sharing a dessert, or whatever that is that makes you, allows you to feel structure so you have sort of clear guidelines. I don't like to use the word rules, but guidelines that help you to say, okay, this is what I know that I'm going to do. And then also the freedom to be able to go out with your family, to go out with your girlfriends, to have that night out on the town that is really what life is all about. So when we instill these types of things, what we're doing, and this is another sort of phrase that I like to use with my clients, is we are taking action. So we are setting these guidelines and then we're going out and doing it. And then we're analyzing what happened, like what we did in that circumstance, and then we can adjust for the future. So we learn by experience. We learn by going out and doing those things that we want to do and giving ourselves permission to experiment and try it out and not expect ourselves to be perfect, but then to afterwards take a look at it and say, okay, nothing's wrong. Like I'm not going to guilt myself or feel shame about this, but what would I maybe adjust for the future? What would I try differently? Maybe I'm going to drink more water, throughout the course of that meal, or whatever it is. Like there's different things that you can do. Maybe you decide, well, instead of 3 beers, I want to just make sure I have 2 beers, or whatever it is that makes you feel like you made decisions that helped you to feel like you enjoyed it, but it was in moderation. So that's one aspect of that, is this idea of of not having these black and white rules and having like 2 treat meals a week. Another way to look at it, and another thing that I teach my clients is to create a list of your 3 food non-negotiables. So I talk about this a lot. So this idea is really choosing those 3 foods that allow you to feel free, like feel like you're getting to experience the things that you want to feel, like they allow you to feel satisfied. And when we have this list, then, so for me, for example, and my list has changed many times throughout my life. So for me, it's in the past been, number 1, having dessert every day, because I love dessert. Like, I'm totally that sweet person over the salty person, although I do love both of those things combined. But I want to have dessert every day. I want to have coffee every day because I love that ritual, and I would be really mad if I couldn't have coffee. And the third thing is to have 1 meal a week where I go out and enjoy a night out with my friends. And so having that structure in place allows me to start from there and say, okay, these are the things that I need to have in order to feel satisfied. Now, what sort of structure do I need to create around them in order to feel safe? So it's like, that's again the balance of structure to freedom. So for dessert every day, well, for me, what feels best is to choose healthy versions of those desserts. So whether it's a healthy ice cream or whether it's a healthy dessert that I make at home, whether it, there's different things, like if I'm going out to eat, maybe it's a few bites of dessert versus a whole dessert by myself. That allows me to feel like, okay, I get to have that thing. I'm not depriving myself, but I'm also doing it in a manner that makes me feel good afterwards. When it comes to coffee, it's funny, my coffee routine has changed a lot over the years. I used to love caramel macchiatos, from Starbucks, where they put tons of caramel in it. Then from there, I switched to skinny lattes, and that was my thing for a while. And these days, what I really enjoy the most is to have an Americano. So that's basically just the espresso shots, and then they add water. And then I bring my own stevia. So I have the sweet leaf stevia. There's a vanilla version in the dropper that I just carry with me. So I add that. And then I also have them add a little bit of steamed skim milk on the top. And if I'm making it at home, I have an espresso maker. So I just make my own coffee, and then I add almond milk and stevia, and I'm good to go. So that's how, it's funny, I've done the exact same thing, that act, analyze, adjust. Over time, I just adjusted based on what felt right. And then finally, the dinner out with friends. On those occasions, what I do is beforehand, I kind of set up in my head, okay, I want to make sure, I, have 2 cocktails, and that's my limit tonight because that's what feels good. I'm going to drink water in between. Sometimes, sorry, there's a lot of background noise today. Sometimes I'll have a really healthy shake beforehand so that I don't show up really, really hungry. Other times, I'll give myself permission to go and have some bread, as an appetizer, or have an appetizer, and do it in a way that feels mindful so that I'm not just going overboard, but I'm enjoying the meal. I'm allowing myself to receive pleasure from it, which is another thing that I go into detail on in my Rock Your Dream Body Immersion program, about how important receiving pleasure is in this whole equation, because the more we allow ourselves to receive pleasure, the more or the less we are to overindulge, because you need smaller portions when you're really giving yourself that opportunity to tune in. So that's number 1. That was a lot, but hopefully that was really helpful and gave you lots of things that you can really start implementing and getting clear on what that structure looks like for you. Number 2 is to work with your body instead of against it, so you can lose weight, increase energy, and focus on living your best life. So I mentioned this already, and I could teach a whole nother talk call just on this topic alone, but this is important, so write this down. Stress has a very real physiological effect on how well your body functions as a system. So what that means is that when you're operating in a very stressed out mode, so whether you're stressed out about a conversation that you just had, or a meeting at work, or what you just ate, or any of those types of things, when you're in that fight or flight, or that flight or fight mode where your body is basically in survival mode, then all of your systems like digestion and metabolism are shut down or slowed down a ton. So basically, if you think about it, if you're running around throughout your day totally in that fast forward, stressed out mode, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So, no wonder why you have digestive issues, right? If you're stressed out all the time, if your body's not able to digest and metabolize the food that you're eating properly, then of course you're going to have issues. So maybe all these things, like we have all of these different food sensitivities that are coming up for people these days. And what I like to say, or how I like to challenge that, is that maybe it's not the food. Maybe it's actually the stressed out state that most of us are eating in. So the action item here is to practice being more present. I mentioned this idea of receiving more pleasure from our food, from eating whatever it is that we're eating. When we allow ourselves to receive more pleasure, our body goes into that relaxed state. When we practice awareness when we're eating, our body goes into that relaxed state. And when our body is relaxed, then it's set up to be able to digest and metabolize optimally because it feels safe, right? It's not in this mode of like survival where it's focused all of its attention on just staying alive. It's like, oh, okay, I can lean back. I can focus on digestion. I can metabolize this food properly. So when we relax, when we practice awareness, when we really tune into the process of eating, or even in general, when we relax and we learn how to be relaxed, even in environments that are stressful, we're setting our body up for success. So one of the best ways that you can do this, and I teach this to my clients as well, is taking 5 deep breaths. You can reset your entire nervous system with 5 deep breaths. I mean, that's pretty awesome, right? It's like less than 5 minutes. You can reset. It's like a reboot to your entire system. And basically what you're doing is you're getting oxygen into your cells. Your cells need oxygen in order to work properly. So when we breathe deeply, we're giving our body what it needs. And honestly, most people go throughout their entire day breathing very shallowly. When we're stressed out, we breathe shallowly. When we're relaxed, we breathe deeply. So practice that before meetings, after meetings, at work, before you eat. When you're on your way home from work, when you're in your commute, breathe deeply. Tune into your body. Practice being more relaxed. Practice, learning how to manage stress, and you will be working with your body instead of against it. So that was number 2. Now let's move on to number 3. And that is to plug in high-quality, bioavailable nutrients to fuel your body properly. So the term bioavailable nutrients means that the nutrients are in a form that your body can take in and assimilate very quickly and very easily, getting those nutrients into your cells. So this is an area that, again, is very confusing in the media. And this is actually one of the top areas that we deal with when we have these lists of good foods versus bad foods. And even this past January, how there's lots of focus on getting healthy after the new year with New Year's resolutions and everything like that. I was asked by Yahoo Health to put together a list of good foods. These are the foods that you should be eating. And I'm just taking a sip of water. And I actually talked the editor into not focusing on creating this list, but rather focusing on how you can set your body up for success, like everything that I'm talking about today. Because the reality is there are a lot of things going against us. And this is not something to worry about. Like, I live in LA. I breathe the air. We eat foods that are not organic. Like, there's all these different things that, like, you could spend so much time and energy stressing out over all this stuff that, yes, you have some control over it, but really the solution is not to, restrict and avoid all of this stuff, right? Going back to that idea of all-inclusive versus exclusive. The idea is to get yourself into this mindset of, how can I just support my body as best as I can? How can I make this really, really easy? How can I, not cut corners, but how can I just set myself up for success in the best way that I can, that is supportive of me and my life and what I like and what I don't like? So, I'm sure you've heard this already in the media, that a lot of our food right now is nutritionally bankrupt. There are a lot of issues with soil mineral depletion. A lot of people rely a lot on fast food and processed food. And we are well-meaning, and we say to ourselves, oh, I want to eat healthy and I want to do these things that are going to really, I want to use Sunday to plan ahead and prep all of my meals. But the reality is that a lot of times it just doesn't happen. And when it comes to food, when it comes to whole foods, even that, isn't the entire solution, really. There's a study done by the UCLA about soil mineral depletion. And what they found is that you would have to eat 43 bowls of spinach in 1997 to equal just one bowl of spinach in 1953. So, that's a reality check. And, again, this isn't something to be scared about. Like, I don't share the stuff. I'm not into these, like, scare tactics and fear and all of that, because nobody likes to live in fear. There's so many things we could be scared about if we really wanted to be. Like, you could literally worry all day long, but that's not living life, that's not enjoyable. I want to help set you up for a life that really feels good. So what do we do? Like, nobody is going to eat 43 bowls of spinach, right? And maybe you don't even like spinach. So do you force yourself to eat these foods that you hate? Like, if you don't love kale, are you forcing yourself to eat kale or collard greens or all these things that you hear like, well, it's good for you, so you should be eating that? No, you don't have to eat these massive quantities of foods, vegetables or foods that you hate. You just have to figure out how to cover those bases and cover that foundation in a way that makes sense for you. And one of the ways that I do that with my clients is with these whole food or superfood supplements, because that's the reality, is that, like I said, no one is going to eat 43 bowls of spinach. And if we're really being honest with ourselves, a lot of us will say, well, I don't like supplements, I don't like protein powders or, taking vitamins because I want to do it with whole foods. But the reality is that if we're being really honest with ourselves, none of us really eat this huge, wide variety of whole foods every single day. Like, for most people, it's great if you get in a salad, but are you eating massive amounts of salads and salmon and all of these other things on a daily basis? No. So if you just, sort of set that, like, basically tell yourself, like, hey, okay, well, you know what, that's just the truth. And I can tell myself all day long that I'm going to do all of these things. But, when I work with clients, these corporate women that are running around from meeting to meeting, and then they realize, well, I haven't eaten all day, or nurses or doctors that are in the ER all day and they barely have a chance to pee, let alone make themselves a meal. Or my mom, like, I have mom clients that, good God, like, when I talk to them about what they eat during the day, it's so common for me to hear, well, I kind of just eat the scraps off of my kid's plate. So, like, let's set ourselves up for success, right? And that's the whole reason why I started offering these supplements and this nutrition line to my clients, is because I started to realize, like, they need this. They need help. I need to find a high quality, highly concentrated superfood supplement and a line of shakes that will help them to get these basic nutritional needs covered, so that anything on top of that is an added bonus. And for my clients, this was a game changer. It was like they were giving themselves permission to stop striving for perfection, which isn't possible anyways. You know, like, no human being really is perfect. And to really find ways to plug in convenient nutrients into their day in ways that make sense for them, so that they can shift their focus over to what they really want to be focusing on, and to stop beating themselves up or obsessing over the fact that they weren't doing it good enough. And I mean, I'm sure you can relate to that. I feel like it's so common. You know, we obsess because we think we're failing. And, you know, when we stop telling ourselves that we're failing and we start telling ourselves that we're winning and we make things easy, then we naturally stop stressing about it. So I'm going to share a little bit more about that at the end. If you're interested, if you want to learn more about working with me on that, or you want to learn more about the nutrition line, I have a really amazing offer at the end. But for right now, I just kind of want to help you to know what to look for. So when you are looking for supplements, and that's everything from multivitamins to mineral replacements to, and you need both of those, by the way. They supplement each other. Without one, the other one, your body doesn't process it optimally, so you need both. And also shakes, I want you to make this list. So write down, you want them to be whole food based, especially when you're talking, well, both, but shakes and supplements, they need to be whole food based. You want them to be artificial sweetener and filler free. So what that means is that, you know, I'll hear from people, oh, I've got it covered. You know, I go and I buy whatever's off the shelf for a multivitamin, or I'll buy shakes, like, you know, protein powder is the same, whey protein is the same if it just says whey protein on it. But I'll tell you that a lot of these products, especially if they're really cheap, they're filled with a lot of fillers, or they're not a very high quality form of protein or a high quality form of these nutrients. And so if you don't, you know, invest in high quality forms of these things, then essentially you just have really expensive urine, because your body can't process it. Your body, it's not bioavailable, going back to that word. So you want whole food-based versions. You want soy and gluten-free. And, you know, the gluten-free part is not necessarily something that most people have issues with. The main thing is that you just don't want extra stuff. Like, you want whole food. Like, a lot of gluten-free foods have a lot of extra stuff in them. So, back up. So soy and gluten-free is going to make sure that it is the cleanest version of that product for your body to be able to assimilate. So you're just going to basically be getting exactly what you need in order for your body to take it in, get the nutrients, and release what it doesn't need. The last part is that when you're looking at protein powders, you want it to be undenatured whey protein. And the reason why that is so important, and this goes back to me, like, I used to have dairy allergies, or I thought I did, but what was actually happening is that I was consuming a lot of pasteurized dairy products. And when products are pasteurized, they're heated to really high temperatures. So when you get a whey protein powder that's undenatured, that means that it's not heated to really high temperatures, which leaves a lot of the enzymes in the protein powder, so that it helps your body to be able to assimilate those nutrients. So it helps your body to be able to digest it, because the enzymes are what help your body to process the dairy. And for me, when I started eating less processed versions of dairy, it actually helped my body to build up those enzymes, and then now I have no issues at all. So a lot of people who have issues with dairy will, when they use an undenatured whey protein, they actually don't have any issues. So that's number 3. You want to really plug in those high quality nutrients whenever possible. So number 4, you want to make healthy, easy, and convenient so that it naturally becomes a part of who you are and how you think. So this goes back to this, I've touched on it a few times already. The more you obsess about this stuff, the more you work yourself up all about it and you make it out to be a really big deal, the more it's like exhausting, right? It's like, I can't figure this out. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So screw it. I'm just going to go off the deep end. I'm just going to go all the way to the other end of the spectrum. When we go back to this idea of structure and freedom, if we try to put too much structure in place and it's just not realistic, then that's when we rebel and we go all the way to the other end of the spectrum to freedom. But then that doesn't even feel good anyways, because we end up feeling really guilty and, it's not the solution at all. But we need to be able to find that balance where, again, going back to this idea of structure and freedom, we have enough structure, but in a way that is easy and convenient so that we are setting ourselves up for these wins. And the more wins that we have, the more that momentum builds in the positive direction. Versus if you try to go too strict and too rigid, you're basically setting yourself up for failure because you start to feel that feeling of like, it's never good enough. I can never do it. I can't keep up. You go to that perfectionist mindset and you feel like, man, I just can't get this, so I'm not even going to try. So the easier that you can make it, the more likely you will be able to do it and then stick to it. So this is where we can start to think about, being realistic. How can you make this as easy as possible? How can you plug in these nutrients? How can you get whole foods easily? And let's map out a plan. So this is where you take action. You start to ask yourself questions like, is it realistic for me personally to prep ahead on Sunday? Is it realistic for me to, buy all these chicken breasts and all of these vegetables and salads and everything else and prep all of that on Sunday? Or are you the type of person who really loves to have your Sunday to spend with your family, or to go do things with friends, or to go hiking, in the summer months? Or, even the idea of prepping ahead, if it makes you feel really icky, then don't try to force yourself to do these things that just aren't realistic to you. And I had a client once who, she kept trying to force herself into that box. She kept trying to be that person that would make all of these things at home on Sundays and, batch cook and, make healthy omelets for breakfast and all this stuff on Sundays. And it was just so emotionally and physically exhausting to her because it just was not a fit that she wasn't ever able to stick to it. And so when we talked about that, and I said to her, listen, let's just take prepping ahead off the table and let's strategize and think of and brainstorm what we can do instead. So maybe, and for her, that was number 1, knowing where the healthy salad bar options are. Where's the nearest Whole Foods or the nearest grocery store that has a really great salad bar, or the nearest restaurant by your work that can offer you quick, easy, healthy options, and what are those options on the menu that are your go-to items? You're probably going to spend a little bit more, but in the grand scheme of things, wouldn't you rather invest in your health a little bit up front to get those options versus trying to do something that's not a fit for you and then being miserable and then not achieving your goals anyways? So things like that, knowing where to get those options, buying the pre-cut vegetables instead of expecting yourself to cut them all ahead of time, bringing travel-friendly snacks with you and having snacks in your desk. Maybe you go shopping and you buy apples and some other fruit and you keep those in your desk so that at 2 o'clock when you're hungry, you have your apple and a handful of nuts as a snack. Or maybe you have your favorite healthy protein bars in your desk so that when you're running to that meeting and you're starving, you choose that versus swinging by the vending machine or eating what they brought to to the, lunch and learn or whatever, to the meeting that is food that are not going to make you feel good later. So, and another great option is buying a giant water bottle and bringing that with you everywhere you go. And if you're one of those people that say, well, it's hard for me to drink water, like put some fruit in it, put some lemon in it, even a couple of squirts of stevia and lemon so that it's kind of like lemonade. That's a great option too. There's lots of different things that you can do to plug in these nutrients. Another one of my favorites, and again, another thing that I do with some of my clients that want nutritional help, we plug in shakes. In the morning time, a lot of people say, I'm not hungry or I don't feel like making a full breakfast. They'll just have a shake. Or post-workout, when you're on the go, you're running from the gym to the next thing you're doing, just have a shake. And then that way, if you're going from the gym to maybe a dinner, then you don't show up starving like I was talking about before. You don't show up starving, so then you eat the entire bread basket and all the appetizers, and then you have 3 glasses of wine and all of these things that later on make you end up feeling like you failed. So just being preemptive, like really setting yourself up in a way that will help you to succeed and feel your best and be in your power and have energy and give you all of these things that you need so that you can continue that momentum in the positive direction, like I'm doing really great things versus, man, I just can't get this right. Okay, so that was number 4. We're really focused on consistency over perfection. And write that down too. Like that's the key, consistency. It's the baby steps. It's the consistent baby steps that over time lead up to long-term sustainable change. So for number 5, and this is the final piece too, that is detoxification and cellular cleansing. Now, again, we're talking about just tell me what to eat. Like, what am I supposed to eat? And a lot of times people are expecting like, okay, the list is spinach, blueberries, apples, kale. Like they're expecting some sort of list. And the reality is that, again, like we've talked about, you can't force yourself to just eat these specific things and then expect the results. You have to really focus on setting up the lifestyle that is the best fit for you. And cellular cleansing is one of those things that, again, can be customized to you and your preferences, and it can really help your body get through the plateaus, the weight loss resistance, and it can free your cells up to be able to take in the nutrients that you're consuming effectively. Now, I really want to explain this one clearly because I know that a lot of people, and myself included, when you hear the word cleanse, you think restriction, you think sugar detox, you think cutting all of these things out and being extremely uncomfortable. And what I want to share with you today is the mindset shift that I had around the idea of cleansing. And so there's a difference between all of these detoxes, like the sugar detox and a lot of the sort of poopy cleanses and cellular cleansing. So the idea of cellular cleansing is not about dieting at all. It's not about just, reducing calories. It's about opening your cells up and getting the toxins out so that your cells can receive the nutrients efficiently. Anything that you're taking in, meaning, nutrients from these bioavailable supplements, nutrients from the whole foods. Like, we talked about a lot of whole foods don't have as many nutrients as they used to, but they still have some. And so if you're eating these different whole foods, your body is detoxifying from that because whole foods help to pull toxins out. But there are certain ways that we can set our body up for even more success. And so for me, the idea of incorporating a cellular cleanse was something that I at first was resistant to. But when I really started understanding the benefits of it and how it helps to set your body up for success for the long term and not just a quick fix, I started coming around. And I first tested it out for myself, and I saw the results. I felt better. I had more energy. I noticed my hormone levels change, like my body started working even more efficiently. And I had a beta test of clients that I put through this as well, and they got amazing results as well. So cellular cleansing is something that I do recommend. And again, I can give you more details on the one that I use, but I just my intention in bringing this up today is to educate you on the benefits of it so that you can make a decision. And, if you want to research and find something on your own, totally cool, whatever feels best to you. But I just want to help you to understand what I've understood about the toxins in our environment, the toxins in our food. And again, going back to the reality that, I think the statistic is that we consume like 14 pounds of toxins a year. And again, that's not something to be scared about. I'm not scared about that. I will be totally honest with you. I have Diet Coke sometimes. I have artificial sweeteners if there's nothing else around. I will have these things on occasion. It's not something that I eat every single day, but it's also not something that I'm going to freak out about because, I really believe that there's no way to just completely remove toxins from our environment and our body completely. But, we can be preemptive about them. And so one of the things I wanted to explain about the difference between dieting and leaning out or going through something where, like we've talked about, summer is coming and we want to eat healthy so we can reduce body fat, and incorporating that with cellular cleansing, there's a big difference, and it is a game changer. So when we diet, so when we reduce calories, when we really focus on just losing weight and restriction, doing those like quick fix types of things, what happens is that our bodies get smaller, but it also stresses the body because what's happening is that the toxins and impurities that are in our body are remaining in concentrated amounts. So as your body gets smaller, there's actually more toxins per square whatever inch of your body than before. And so what happens is your body kind of freaks out a little bit because it doesn't know how to handle that. It's like the more concentrated amounts of toxins kind of make it upset. And so that's where people rebound. And that's what happens when we do these different quick fix diets, and afterwards when we eat more amounts of food or we binge or we do things that, we're consuming more calories, our body actually ends up gaining more weight than what we previously were maintaining. And that's just because your body doesn't know what to do. It doesn't feel safe and it rebounds. So the opposite, when we incorporate a cellular cleanse, what we're doing is we are cleaning out the toxins from our cells, and the majority of those toxins are actually stored in our visceral fat cells. So that's the cells around our organs, the cells around our midsection. So the bonus side effect is that as our body releases toxins, our fat cells actually shrink. So you can't get rid of fat cells. You pretty much have the amount of fat cells you will have, I think, I don't know, if it's the age of 6 or something like that. Like you basically have the amount of fat cells that you're going to have. Some die off, they're replaced, but pretty much you have this number. So you can't lose fat cells, but you can shrink them. And as you shrink them, as you release those toxins, they get smaller. And as you release the toxins, you are opening those cells up to be able to receive nutrients more efficiently. So the action item there is that, there are these pesticides, there are these different things that we really can't avoid, but what we can do is help our body to clean them out as much as possible. So if you want to learn more about that, that is something that I can give you further information on and really help you to understand it at greater levels. Like, I don't want to go into a ton of detail because we're kind of coming up the end of the hour now. But if that is something that you're interested in, I would love to talk with you more about that. And the way to do that is to apply for a 20-minute discovery session with me. And so if you go to sheilaveers.com/ready, you can fill out an application for that. So that's Sheila, EILA, Viers, V as in Victor, IERS.com/ready. And we can get on the phone and we can talk about your goals, your challenges, and I can give you some suggestions to jumpstart your progress. If you really liked everything that you heard today, if you feel like it resonates with you and the type of support and guidance that you're looking for, now is a great time to get started. We talked about 90 days. The summer is coming, wedding seasons are coming. Yes, that's a motivator for a lot of people, but ultimately, I want to use that to help motivate you, but at the same time, my goal for you and what I love to help the people that I work with to create is not just this quick fix, week long for a vacation or a wedding change. It's to really build a lifestyle that makes you feel like this is something that you get to do. It's not something that you have to do. This is your life. You want to rock your dream body and your dream life. And I'm taking a small group of people into an 8-week challenge that I have that is starting on Monday, and working with them one-on-one with accountability, with daily check-ins, with meal plans and recipes and workouts, and the nutrition line that I talked about, and a private Facebook group where you guys can all do this together so that you have all of those different components that are going to make this really easy. I found with my clients, the different parts of the puzzle are really making the healthy part really easy, plugging in workouts that you really enjoy and that you'll stick to for the long term, having the support system and the community that's going to be there by your side that, has similar struggles and challenges that you can work through together and support each other on. And then finally, the accountability piece and having someone like me that's done this for the past, 4 years right there by your side that knows your triggers, that knows the stuff that comes up, that knows how to work you through those times where you're out traveling or you're, at dinner and you don't know what to choose, or you want to make adjustments for the future, but you're not exactly sure what to do, or making sure you get in your water every single day, making sure you're hydrating yourself, making sure you're making these decisions that are going to be supportive of your goals. That's what this work is all about. And I will tell you from my own experience that change is scary, right? Let's all just put that on the table. Like, change is scary. Investing in yourself is scary. And that's why we need a coach. That's why we need somebody to be there by our side. Not to do it for us, not to give us a strict plan that is a cookie cutter thing that they give to 10 other clients, but to work with us to customize a plan that is something that we are going to stick to for the long term. And so, and I'm going to open it up to questions here in a minute, so I want to hear from you guys if you have specific questions. But this is where I go into a little bit of the tough love / supportive love mode in the sense that, like, if this is something that is resonating with you, if you feel like, man, this is what I need right now, then I 1,000% encourage you to go to SheilaViers.com/ready and fill out the application. Because I will tell you, every single time in my own life when I have stepped up and decided that I needed coaching, I needed help, I needed to do something different, I needed to make a change, I was freaking scared. Pulling out my credit card, working with a coach. Like, I have my own personal coach. I actually just got off the phone with her right before this call, and it feels so good, and it was such the right decision. And when I was talking to her, I had that, when we were doing our initial call to decide whether we were going to work together, I had that visceral feeling of, yes, this is what I need, and I was also scared to invest. So I want you to know this is normal. If you're feeling like, oh my God, this is something I want to do, but I'm also really scared, just take that first step. There's no obligation to fill out the application, for us to have a conversation, for me to give you some tips to jumpstart you in the right direction, and to give you the suggestions. And if it makes sense, once we talk and we're a fit for each other, then we'll talk about what that looks like. But I just want you to know that for myself, for other people that I've talked to, for clients that have had amazing success in the beginning, when we're talking about investing in ourselves and doing something different, it's always scary. So I hope that's helpful for you. And so now I want to open it up, and I want to let you ask any questions. And there's no wrong question. There's no dumb question. And I guarantee if you're thinking something, there is definitely somebody else on the line that is thinking the same thing too.